Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about people skills. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, how do you get people skills? I don't even like myself. Well, you don't have to like yourself to have people skills. I'd like to think that somewhere deep down, even the most horrible sociopathic manipulators of people uh, that they feel something. So when you spend tons and tons of time defrauding people or using questionable practices for personal gain, it eats away at your soul. That's what I hope. I think. Anywho, if you want to improve your people skills, there is only one method that will, in my opinion, work. I mean, some people have this organically, but it is exposure. You cannot get good at people skills if you don't talk to a lot of people and interact with a lot of people. That's the only way that I know works. It's like public speaking or anything like that. You can't. It's not a theoretical thing. It is in my opinion, at the very least, it is one part understanding. You can of course make this a theoretical thing, but I've always seen that the people who do the best with other people are the sorts of people who have a genuine interest in communicating with other individuals and understanding their way of thinking. They enjoy the conversation that they have, and like, I'm not saying that they have to necessarily be extroverted, but extroverted people have an easier time with this, because the thing that makes us good at conversing and understanding other people is, drumroll, pattern, patterns, pattern recognition. This is what gives you charisma. It is what gives you the ability to speak freely and interact with people. You have to have the ability to understand how other people think and what type of combinations of phrases and words and ways of expressing yourself has an effect on a given person. People who are inept socially are usually the sorts of people who can't read the signals from other people, and they don't understand how to phrase things or how to converse with each individual person. So it's, as I said, it's not just that because there are people who sit, if you want to have extreme examples of people like that, you can take a look at your government officials. Some of them they talk to hundreds and hundreds of people, yet let's just say that they're not going to win conversationalist of the year anytime soon. But my suggestion to this subscriber was basically take on a job in the service industry. You can do volunteer work, or basically take on any activity whatsoever where communication is the most important thing for you. And that, imagine the sort of training a person who works as a waiter or a waitress gets. That's an example of what I'm talking about. It's not just what you have to do to gain people skills, but it is the prerequisite for you in order to get people skills. If you want to get to the really, really high levels of this stuff, it's not just, as I said, about just doing things. There are people who do things every day, but you have to also think about it, reflect a little bit. Why do people do the things that they do? Why do they express themselves in certain ways? Spend some thought on why things do happen the way that they do. This is something that I've done most of my life. It's maybe you can relate to it, where you can have 100 conversations in a day, and you might have one or two that went really, really good and one or two that went really, really bad. And then you sit and you go over in your head over and over and over and over. Okay, why did I get that reaction? Why did they do it this way? Or why did the conversation take that turn? Why did they express themselves this way? You start to analyze why things happen, and some people don't do that. I do that to the point where I can't stop doing it. This is a little bit dangerous as well, guys. This is where you might start. You can't let that. It takes a while. At least it took me a while. Maybe you're different. To be able to detach yourself, because what can happen is that you can start injecting your own thoughts. A classic one is that you start making up in your head that someone doesn't like you when there's actually no That's not at all the issue. Is that you create like this. It's almost this is how I imagine some psychopathic people will get to the point where they start doing really, really bad shit, where they start imagining a fictional world based on their own thoughts, and it starts with this sort of inner voice. But that analyzing and reflection is also the way that you start understanding, okay, this is how you have to communicate with that person, or this is how you need to communicate with that person, etc., etc. You recognize the patterns and so forth. Now this person describes back to me that, Frederick, I worked as a milk boy from childhood to teenage years, which involved a lot of human interaction. But having spent over 20 years coding, I really feel human interaction drains me. I don't think the autism helps either. But thank you for your response. Well, this is what I was saying. It doesn't matter if you've done 20 years. You asked me, dude. You came to me. You wanted to you wanted to learn how to get people skills. And you now say to me that it's draining. I didn't say that it wasn't going to be draining. This is the misconception between being extroverted and introverted. It's about energy. What gives you energy and what drains you. The most introverted person that you can possibly imagine can still have amazing people skills. Truly amazing. And if, as I said, like if it drains you to spend time with people, then you're never going to get the training. It's basically, to me, like what you just said, is sort of like saying it's the poor man's excuse for not exercising. I don't have time, or I don't have the energy, etc., etc. Sure, once upon a time I cared about stuff like that, but now I sort of treat it like, if you want to make up excuses for, not being able to go for a walk or do basic strength training or something like that, that's on you. It's bullshit. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. But it's your choice, and it doesn't affect anybody except you. So if you want to pretend like you can't solve this problem because you're too lazy or too whatever, that's on you. But as I said, if you don't want to sit around a lot of people, then you're probably never going to get any people skills. But that doesn't mean that you have to love it. It's not like you have to do it all the time. You can, as I said, you can think of it as strength training. It's just something you do in order to practice. I mean, what do you think these videos are? This is basically practice. It's all it is, really. I'm glad that it helps some people out, but it is really only that. That's why there's, well, at this point now, I think that if I stopped now making videos, you would see this thing in, it's like 2.5 years or 1.5, something like that. Like we're talking about by that time. I'm not doing this for the likes. I promise you, I'm not doing that. It's, as I said, it's like it's like practicing, and the more you do it, the easier it becomes. It's the same thing with you. So if you're not willing to even go out and just have conversations with people and start reflecting a little bit on why people behave the way they do, it becomes very difficult for you to develop any type of meaningful people skills. But as I said, I can only give you a suggestion. It's up to you if you want to take the advice or not. So what I want you to take away from this is that the way that you usually increase your people skills is actually very simple. You have to talk to a lot of people. You have to converse about them, share ideas ideally. Sure, working in the service industry might be a way for you to get some thicker skin so you can feel more comfortable having a conversation. But I've always found that it's having conversations with people where you get to share thoughts, like meaningful conversations, are usually better, because when you have a meaningful conversation with someone, and ideally it should be a conversation where you listen to people, the more you listen to in-depth thoughts and reflective thoughts from somebody else. Like one of my favorite exercises that you can take if you want is to ask what-if questions. What would you do if? Ask a simple one is, what if you could go back in time and kill Hitler, for example? would you? What would you do if you had endless money? And let's just hear them reflect on their thoughts. Because when you listen to somebody else's way of thinking, you get to it's like peeking inside of their skull and seeing, okay, this is how they usually think. This is how they think. And you do that a million times, and then you spend some real time thinking about why do people think the way that they do. And sooner or later, you're going to start to see a pattern in people's value systems and the way that they are affected by things, etc., etc. And you get a sixth sense for how to express yourself and communicate effectively with people, almost regardless of context. And that is usually what I call the really meaningful people skills. There are many other skills as well, but when it comes to effective communication, these are one of the most powerful things that you can learn how to do. And as I said, you don't have to be an extroverted person who wants to go and party all the time. This is a skill. And even if you are an introvert like myself and you feel more comfortable just being by yourself, it is still a very useful skill to have when you have to talk to people, it is important. And the only difference really is the energy cost to you. It doesn't change the skill. Still the same thing, and both an extrovert and an introvert can master this. Have a great day.